Good morning, everyone. You are very welcome to this international conference, which is organized in the frame of a Suwanu Europe project. Suwanu Europe is a thematic network focused on water reuse in agriculture, and it's funded by the European Commission in the Horizon 2020 program. My name is Rafael Casielles. I am the project coordinator. I'm from Bioazul. And I'm very pleased to be here to open this conference. And I would like to start with a short story. I come from Andalusia, a region in South Spain, and there we have a lot of projects with farmers, and they're really struggling with water scarcity. They have invested a lot of efforts and money to become more water efficient, to make better use of their limited water resources, but the truth is that it's not enough, and they are checking the level of the water level of the dam very regularly. They're really worried about the status of the water dam, which is their main resource of water. And yes, the reality is that water scarcity it's really a global problem, not only in traditional arid areas like South Spain, but also in other wet areas. So climate change is really posing a big pressure on our water resources, and we have to take care of that. Okay, so we are here today in Lisbon, or close to Lisbon in Portugal, having this conference. It's unfortunately we are going to have a virtual conference. I say unfortunately because I really would like to have a face-to-face meeting. It's our initial plan, but due to the COVID-19 crisis, we have to be like this. Well, it's not our ideal, but at least we have the opportunity to reach more people. We have already 400 people registered, so also technology gives us the benefit to reach more. Well, I have to say as well that our conference is titled Pathways to extend water reuse practices in Europe. This is our goal in Suwanu Europe, and I hope we can do it here today as well, by sharing knowledge, by sharing success stories and other projects and initiatives, and really very good experts that are here today with us. And also very pleased to present you my colleague Angela in Bioazul, and Ria Almeida from Consulai that will be today with me. Well, hello Angela, how are you? Very happy to see you here.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Rafa. Thank you for joining us today. Let me introduce a little bit myself. I work as DIRCOM R&D project manager at Bioazul, located in Malaga, south in Spain. We are a consulting and water engineering company. We have an extensive experience in research and developing European projects, mainly on circular economy, nature-based solutions, resource efficiency, and water management. In Suwanu Europe, it has been a strategic project for us after a strong work during the last year in technologies and project focused on water reclamation, what is our main topic today. And today I'm very happy to be here hosting the conference with Rafa and Rui. And we would like this event to be participatory, so please, you are invited to leave your question in our chat, and they will be answered during the session today and tomorrow in our question and answer sessions. As Rafa mentioned, Suwanu Europe is a thematic network and want to spread the knowledge, and the main purpose is that this engage for you. So we have our social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. They are open for your comment and your message. So just remember, this session will be recorded. We will share it. So please visit our website, where also you can find main on-posts of our project, we invite you to subscribe to our mailing list. So, hello, Rui.
Hello, Angela. Hello, Rafa. Hello to you all. It's a huge pleasure to share this internal conference with you guys in this stage. It's also a huge pleasure to host this international conference of Suwanu Europe here in Portugal. As you said, Rafa, we are just near Lisbon in Sintra, a nice village, and I strongly invite you to visit us, to visit our beautiful country, and also, of course, if you have the opportunity, also to check some innovative initiatives that we have on reclaimed water. It is important to say that, as Rafa said, it's unfortunately we are not face-to-face. We are supposed to be in Brussels in an international conference, but still these online events have another advantage, which is to have to engage more people. I guess we will have some, you said 400, I guess we were almost reaching the 500 subscribers, attendees, so let's see how it goes. And I think that's something huge, because this COVID-19, I guess it's like more than 1 year that we haven't been face-to-face.
Yeah.
And this has been a challenge in our projects. And here let me just give my applause to all of the partners of Suwanu Europe. They are watching us. Hi to you all. Because we had to adapt, and we did it in a perfect way, in my opinion. And because we tried to develop all of the tasks that we were supposed to do, and we did it in a perfect way, like with this adaptation. So it was perfect in my opinion. So my name is Rui Almeida, and I am a partner at Consulai. Consulai, it's a private Portuguese advisory company. And of course, this thematic of water, reclaimed water, it's very important as we are in the Southern European country. And of course, water scarcity plays an important role in our agricultural sector. In Consulai, with our advisory team, we developed a lot of technical tasks, of course, but we are also leading the work package of communication and dissemination. So together with you guys, Bioazul, and we are responsible to organize this international conference. And again, I would just like to say that it's a hard work to organize a conference like this. Hard work from Consulai, from our team. Congratulations to all of my team of Consulai. Congratulations also to you guys from Bioazul, and all of the professionals that you are not seeing them, but they are behind the cameras. And and they are quite professional. Let's see how it goes. I suppose it will go perfectly. Again, in our work package of dissemination and communication, as Angela, as you said, we had a huge amount of documents and dissemination materials that are available in our website. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have, I don't know, like info packages.
Yeah.
We have fact sheets.
Policy brief, fact sheets. We have regional information. We have news about all the target region of our project. We have the learning platform and also.
Oh yes, we have the e-learning course. It will be ready and available for the next.
Right now, only in English.
Only in English.
Yeah, but
okay.
in the following weeks we have ready. It was very challenging. Have all the material in all the language that is covered by Suwanu Europe. Okay. But I think that maybe in 2 weeks we have a learning platform ready for all of you in any of the language that is covered in one of the 8 target regions that Suwanu covers.
The 8 target regions, yes. And we had already some very nice feedback on these e-learning courses because they are quite dynamic, they are simple, they go straight to the point. And if they are in different languages, as you say, it will be, I guess, a powerful tool for dissemination of the main outputs of this project. So the project is almost ending. I guess it will end next June, so in 1 month.
Yeah.
I feel sad about it already because I'm already missing you guys. But I guess perhaps new opportunities will come and try to have this Suwanu Europe 2
Yeah.
second part and the follow-up, yeah?
It's true, Rui. It's really a shame that we are getting close to the final. We started in 2019. The project lasts for 2 years and a half, so we are really approaching the end of the project, but we could not have the opportunity of organizing an international conference. And this conference today, it's like our grand finale, our hotspot in the, for disseminating the project, and also for having other experts in the field that will share with us their knowledge, their experiences, their projects. And I think we have a very well balanced program, combining technology experts, innovators, experts in policy and economics. We will have people from the European Commission to talk about opportunities in the water reuse sector. I think it's a very complete program. And, also, I want to felicitate the whole team, the whole Suwanu Europe Consortium for this work, because it has been a teamwork. So thanks to all of you that are listening today.
So I'm glad that you are happy as project leader. I'm glad you are happy. So so this event is organized in 2 consecutive mornings, starting today, and with the second session that will be tomorrow morning. Starting with today's agenda, you can expect a very productive, interesting, and dynamic morning, as you just said. We will have 2 keynote presentations focused on very relevant aspects of water reuse. The first one will be Marie Raffin from Water Reuse Europe, who will talk about policies on water, on reclaimed water. The second one with Gonzalo Delacámara from IMDEA Institute, that will give us a presentation focused on socio-economic aspects. Also during the morning, Rafael will present the H2020 Suwanu Europe project. I'm anxious to see your presentation, Rafa. And then we'll be followed by a parallel session, and we will give you instructions afterwards. So, and then we will end this morning with 2 speakers from Cyprus and Israel. It will be to inspire us with the presentation of success stories in their countries. They are like lighthouse projects, and they are really inspiring. I hope that you also will be inspired with their stories. And tomorrow we also have a keynote speaker sessions. We'll have a quite interesting roundtable. It will be you, Rafa, that will be the moderator.
Yes, I will.
Yes, that will be perfect. And of course, we'll have the elevator pitch session where we have the opportunity to check the presentations of the abstracts, and the posters. I guess we have.
We have 11 abstracts.
11.
11 selected abstracts, but it was some of them that was outside of the final election.
Yeah.
But I think there will be very nice elevator pitch for tomorrow.
Okay, that's perfect. So this, what we are aiming is for you to interact as much as possible with us. In your platform, you can see that in your left you have some buttons. The first button is the home page. Then you'll have like a small calendar that will go afterwards directly to the parallel sessions. We'll explain it afterwards. Then you have like a micro icon. That's if you want to check the biography of the keynote speakers. Could be interesting. And you will also have on your right a chat room, and it's there where you must send us your questions and your suggestions. That is very important for us because we'll try to answer all of them. So let's start with our conference. Thank you so much once more to be attending the conference, and because only in that way you can make a difference. Because as was saying in the film, every drop counts. Yeah. So to begin with, in your screen on your right, you have a button where it says interactivity. And we would like you to go there because we want to know who we have with us attending the conference. You can choose your profile, and we will check the results right in, I guess we'll leave, 2-3 minutes for you to answer. So on your right, you have the button. interactivity, please go there and try to answer this short survey that will appear in your screen. I guess it's already there. And you have to answer these 3 questions. First question, what is your profile? And we have a huge amount of options. If you are an advisor, if you belong to an agro industry, if you are a farmer, I hope that some of you are farmers because they are one of our main targets.
Yeah.
Let's see if you are representing water treatment industry or a policymaker, if you are coming from public authorities, if you are a researcher, if you are representing the retailers, they are very important, only a consumer, or if you are only curious about our thematic, if you are a student, if you are a technician. Then we have another question, this is also quite important, is how do you feel today? Myself, I feel quite enthusiastic on this conference.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Angela?
A little bit nervous.
Nervous?
Yeah, nervous from my side. It's my first time in such as even like this, but I think that it will be very nice and it's also challenging.
Rafa,
I'm very excited.
Okay.
A little bit nervous as well. It's a lot of work in these last weeks, months, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy because today, as I said, it's our hotspot in the project and our opportunity to present all we have done to the public. So I'm very happy.
Perfect. And then we have the last question. Are you familiar with the Suwanu project? And that question for me, and I guess for you guys, it's very important as we are leading and co-leading the work package of communication and dissemination of Suwanu. So I'm expecting that at least you are familiar with Suwanu Europe project. At least we hope so. We hope so. So I guess you answer at least on the first question. Let's see if we have the first results. I can see that at least your profile. Whoa.
A lot of researchers.
Yeah. Have more researchers. Yeah.
I would say it's more or less expected. European projects are very well known by researchers, and European funds are really something of their interest. So I understand many of you are from the research community. It's really one of our main stakeholders here because finally, researchers, you are the ones providing the knowledge. You are the ones to develop new technologies, new ways of changing things. So we are glad to have you here and to raise your interest. But I see that there are other stakeholders which are also important.
Look, we have also public authorities. I think that
authorities,
very nice because it's one of the target group more difficult to reach because we know that you are very, very busy. So thank you to be here. And this kind of knowledge, this kind of technology, this kind of water reclamation, I think the public authority, the legislation, in Suwanu we make a big effort to be updated about the new regulation, European regulation that will be, I think, that crucial for the real implementation of water reclamation. So thank you to be there. We try also, I think that today and also tomorrow in the round table we have a lot of experts in the European legislation like Adriano, Rafael. So I hope that it will be very interesting for them.
Angela, let me say that I'm quite happy to see that at least 40% of the attendees at our international conference are advisors.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry, but I'm quite happy with that. And I hope that all of my team are attending the conference. I will check it afterwards. The advisors, they also play an important role here to fill the gap between the knowledge and the end users, which are, in our case, farmers. And in our opinion, advisors, they really have this important role. And so it's quite important that advisors get to know about the thematic, get to know about, as you just said, about legislation, about the technology, and about the barriers, but also the advantages of reclaimed water applied in agriculture irrigation. So I can see that we also have a lot of students. We have yes, small and
SME.
medium companies, we have
Don't forget.
technicians, and we also have some farmers and farmers organizations, which I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to the second question. How do you feel today? Okay. So I guess most of the attendees are curious about our projects. What do you think about that, Rafa?
Well, we hope to meet your expectations.
Yeah.
It's really, we put a lot of efforts to create an interesting and high quality program.
Mm-hmm.
So you will see. I hope we satisfy your curiosity.
Yes, we will.
Today, and
Yeah.
We will. And I can see that at least 25% are enthusiastic, which is perfect. And 9%, they are aiming to participate quite dynamic in our conference. You will have a chance to do that. I will tell you how afterwards. And only 2% are sleepy, I guess, which is okay.
Yeah, we understand perfect.
Yeah, here
it's
in Portugal,
it's a bit early.
8:30.
Yeah,
It's 30 in Portugal, yeah. I think that maybe also I click in sleepy.
Yeah, we are also. Yes, you click on sleep.
But thank you. I think that we try to wake up you with
we will. Okay, so let's move to the last one. And thank you so much. So are you familiar with the Suwanu Europe project?
Well.
And yes, so most of you says...
Oh, perfect.
80%, yes, I know it very well. I'm so happy.
Great.
Okay. Oh no, the numbers are, yes.
Is what our final
half.
text.
Okay, yeah, half. Okay, so this is very important, as you already know a bit about our project. And of course, by the end of the international conference, you'll get to know not only about our project, but also about what is happening all over Europe about this thematic. So, before we start with the keynote presentations, we would like to invite you to visit our virtual gallery. And you can see it in your screen on your left. That is available on the platform, and we have all the abstracts and the posters submitted within the conference. So in the button on your left, when you can see it says PDF, that's where you can find all of this documentation. So 11 abstracts will be presented tomorrow in the elevator pitch session. However, those that did not have the opportunity to be selected, they earned a place in our gallery because they are very, very interesting too. So it is important to mention for each abstract and poster that are identified the contacts of the main authors so that you can send questions or comments. Please do so. And each abstract and poster also has an evaluation field which we would like you to rate according to the interest of the theme and its structure. This was something that was asked by the abstract leaders, let's say. And yeah, they are anxious to see your reaction on it. So give us your inputs. Tomorrow, before the closing session, we will make a brief analysis of these results. And don't forget, virtual gallery will be available during the whole conference. And so I guess I will leave up to you now. Rafa, we'll have our first keynote presentation.
Yes. We now move on to the first keynote speaker. It's Marie Raffin. She's the director of Water Reuse Europe. She's one of the directors of Water Reuse Europe, and she will give us a presentation on water reuse policies. Marie Raffin works at the innovation department of the Thames Water Utilities Limited. Marie's past research has been focused on water reuse for potable and non-potable applications in the Great London area, assessing, optimizing and selecting appropriate technologies, and understanding how they are influenced by governance, regulation, risk mitigation, and public perception. Marie, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for being here.
Thanks a lot for inviting me and for the introduction. Let's start the presentation. Can you see my presentation, or I can just see me at the moment? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So as I was introduced, I'm Marie Raffin. I'm one of the Water Reuse Europe directors, and today I'm going to speak about the EU 2020-741 water reuse regulation regarding the minimum requirement for water reuse in agriculture. So, sorry. So water reuse in Europe, water reuse worldwide is a growing sector. So if we look at the graph, in 1990s, the global market for water reuse was representing less than 1 million cubic meter per day, and it is expecting to be almost 10 million by 2025. Looking at the compound annual growth rate, this would represent an increase of 12.8% between 2020 and 2028. There is some common key factors for explaining this growth. So there is population growth, escalating urbanization, salinization, climate change, and this is exacerbated by individuals' increasing water footprint, fueled by changing changing diets, societal aspiration, and growing industry requirement. So in Europe, the situation is quite complex, with a high variability of water resource and demand across regions and countries. And as you can see on the map, there is several regions that are already suffering from water stress issues and balanced water supply and demand. So by 2007, 17% of the EU territory was affected by water scarcity issues. In 2014, 13 river basins located in the Mediterranean region were confronted to water stress issues. The northern countries, the Northern European countries, such as Belgium and the UK, are not immune to such issues. In this region, high population density, intensive agriculture, and industrial activities are leading to an overexploitation of freshwater resources and putting the sustainability of water supply at risk. In 2009, the Economic European Area reported that between 1970 and 2002, the number of international tourists in the Mediterranean region increased from 52 million to 228 million, with France, Spain, and Italy welcoming 3/4 of them and up to 80% of them over the period of May to September. That is to say, at a time when water resources are at the lowest levels in regions already suffering from water scarcity issues due to environmental factors such as periodic droughts and saline intrusion. So it is estimated that by 2030, more than 50% of EU river basin will be affected by water scarcity. So in Water Reuse Europe, we did a review of the water reuse schemes that we could identify in Europe. So during the review, 787 schemes were identified in 2017. You can access the review report, which was published in 2018 from our website. The schemes distributed across 16 countries. This represents 437 more schemes identified than the one previously identified in the review of water reuse sector in Europe performed in 2006. Around 10% of the newly identified schemes are at a pilot scale or categorized as future projects. And of the 787 schemes identified, 62% are located in water-scarce countries such as Spain and Belgium. These schemes are particularly common along coastline, where fresh water resources are limited and adversely affected by environmental issues such as drought, as well as over-abstraction of water due to tourism and agricultural activities. So, for instance, 47% of the listed schemes are located along the Mediterranean coast, with over 200 schemes situated on the east coast of Spain in the Murcia, Valencia, Tarragona, and Barcelona regions. Identified schemes cover both non-potable and indirect potable uses across the whole spectrum of possible reuse purposes, from agriculture irrigation to landscape irrigation, including golf courses, but also from industrial uses to the augmentation of water supply resources. Overall, agricultural reuse remains the most common water reuse application in Europe. This represents 39% of the scheme, followed by industrial reuse, this is 15%, and reuse for recreational purposes, 11%. So the majority of the scheme classified as industrial, so 68% are located in Northern Europe. This includes reuse for the food processing industry, such as at the Bakkavor site in the UK, or the Arla food site in Denmark, which reuses 1,000 cubic meters of water every day. However, in Europe, we are still behind other regions or countries, despite a vast potential. In fact, only 2% of wastewater is reused, despite a great potential for reuse within Europe, where 90% of the EU population is connected to a wastewater treatment work. Looking at Cyprus and Malta, they are already reusing more than 90% and 60% respectively of their wastewater, while Greece, Italy, and Spain reuse between 5 and 12% of their effluents. This clearly indicates a huge potential for further uptake. And it is estimated by 2025 that the reuse potential will be in the order of 6,000 million liters per day. But there is still some fundamental barrier to their implementation that needs to be addressed. Some were presented, I think, in the introduction video. So there is a limited awareness of the benefits of water reuse, low acceptance of water reuse solutions, low economic attractiveness of water reuse solutions, and poor coordination of the professionals and organizations involved in water reuse scheme. A lot of reuse schemes do need an holistic approach and quite a lot of stakeholder engagement. And the final one, which hopefully is not true anymore, until recently there was a lack of EU-wide regulation. Okay, so to give you a bit of history of how we end up with the regulation. So this slide represents the portfolio of directive of major importance for water reuse in the EU. Until the recent adoption of the 2020 EU regulations on minimum requirement for water reuse, European-wide standards or guidelines to regulate water reuse in Europe were inexistent. However, over the years, the EU had developed a portfolio of directives to protect the environment and human health, regulate the water cycle, and are therefore of major importance for water reuse, which are illustrated here. So this includes the Drinking Water Directive and its revision in 1998, the Groundwater Directive, the Urban Wastewater Treatment Council Directive, and the Water Framework Directive. I knew I was missing one. So at an EU level, it was acknowledged in 2015 that in spite of its numerous advantages and development potential, the reuse of reclaimed water is not widely implemented in many member states. This pronouncement followed a number of key EU blueprints, reports, and action plans, so identified here for the year 2016 and 2018, all emphasizing the importance of water reuse and reiterating the ambition of the 1991 Urban Wastewater Directive that wastewater should be used wherever appropriate. As a result, consultations have taken place on the best policy option to expedite the uptake of water reuse. But until as of February 2019, there was only few regulatory drivers to encourage water reuse and a lack of clarity on water quality standard. So in the meantime, some countries didn't wait for regulation. So national regulatory tools were developed over the years in a number of EU countries to encourage water reuse. And this was mainly in southern countries among the most affected by water scarcity issues. This includes Cyprus, France, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. which have developed point of view standard for non-potable water application in their jurisdiction, but most mainly focusing on water reuse for irrigation, but with variation in the requirement. So, looking a bit more in detail, these states established their own non-potable water quality criteria, and especially for irrigation purposes. There is some variation in the tone of national legislation and regulation, and you can see it illustrated here in the table, where you have different standards for microbiological standard used in Cyprus, France, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. And you can see that these standards are quite different from one country to the other. These variations reflect differences in the attitudes of consumers between different countries and inability to police and enforce regulation. And this highlights the difficulty in producing a unified EU version, which means that for the states to have to compromise and adapt their existing standard to a unified EU version. Sorry. So one of the main challenge for the EU was actually to agree a common set of non-potable water quality criteria between 28 member states, overcoming attitude toward reuse that often reflect differing priorities, legacy, and capacity in member states. So it was a long pathway towards the adoption of the EU regulation. So this timeline reflects the time taken for the first EU pan regulation on water reuse for agriculture. So this is for agriculture only. I think some of us were hoping that it would go further, but I think it's a really good start. Agriculture is probably the best to start with because it has the most potential, also the bigger market. So the process started in 2018 with new rules to stimulate and facilitate water use for agricultural irrigation. And then there was various document proposals and consultation, and then the regulation has been adopted in 2020. The regulation will come into effect in 2023. The new rules are to be situated in the context of the new Circular Economy Action Plan adopted in 2020, which includes the implementation of the new regulation amongst Europe's priority for the circular economy. The action plan also announces that the Commission will facilitate water reuse and efficiency in other sectors, including in industrial processes. So this slide lays down. What is the minimum? What does the regulation mean? So it lays down a minimum requirement for water quality and monitoring and provision on risk management for the safe use of reclaimed water in the context of integrated water management. The aim is to guarantee that reclaimed water is safe for agricultural irrigation, thereby ensuring a high level of protection of the environment and of human and animal health, promoting the circular economy, supporting adaptation to climate change, and contributing to the objective of Directive 2060/EC by addressing water scarcity and the resulting pressure on water resources in a coordinated way throughout the Union, thus also contributing to the efficient functioning of the internal market. So this purpose is including into the regulation. The Commission estimates that the proposal could increase water resource in agricultural irrigation from 1.7 billion cubic meter in 2015 to 6.6 billion cubic meter per year in 2025. The Commission notes that the preferred option identified in the impact assessment could make it possible to reuse half of the water volume theoretically available for agriculture irrigation, thereby reducing water stress by 5%. It is estimated that the investment cost would amount to 700 million euros, and this is based on a willingness to pay of about €0.50 per cubic meter for preserving natural flows and rivers and aquifers. So what are the EU regulation provision? So as I said, this is focus on agriculture because it's one of the largest consumer of water. So it will potentially result in the maximum impact. So first, the provision defines the minimum requirement for water reuse in agriculture. It defines quality parameters and monitoring requirement to protect the environment, animal and human health. And it also defines key elements that needs to be included in the risk management to ensure reused water is safely used and managed, and there is no risk to the environment, animal and human health. The provision state that the regulation is applicable whenever treated urban wastewater is reused. There is some obligation for the it includes obligation for the reclamation facility operators to comply with the minimum requirement and to monitor the quality of the reused water. It is also required to develop a risk management plan to ensure safety. And each water reuse scheme is subject to a newly introduced system of permits and compliance checks. Looking at the key parameters that are going to be put in place. This has been based on international models. There will be 4 classes of reclaimed water quality from A to D. D is for irrigation of crops for industrial, energy and seeded crop. B and C are similar in terms that it's for food crops consumed raw when the edible part is produced above ground and is not in direct contact with reclaimed water. Processed food and non-food crop, including crops used to feed milk or meat producing animals. The difference between B and C, it's the difference of irrigation methods. B is for the all irrigation methods, while C is for drip irrigation, when drip irrigation or other irrigation method that avoids direct contact with the edible part of the crop are used. And finally, A, which is the most stringent class, is for all food crops consumed raw, where the edible part is in direct contact with reclaimed water and root crops consumed raw. There is also the regulation also include some indication around the technology target. So most of it is about secondary treatment and disinfection, plus the addition of filtration from class A. Looking at the quality requirement, we have some quality requirement around E. coli, BOD, total suspended solid, turbidity, and some other parameters such as Legionella. This parameter will differ based on the class, but what is important to look at is there is some very strict standard, especially for class A, and this may pose a problem for some of the countries that have already some kind of guidance or regulation around irrigation. So in France and Spain, the E. coli limit, for example, is much higher, and will, if to apply this regulation, it will often require the implementation of new technologies such as disinfection, which mean a requirement for investment that some schemes may not be able to afford. So this slide is comparing key indicator between the EU Regulation 2020-741 compared to the Spanish Royal Decree 1620-2007. And as you can see, EU indicators are lower than the Spanish for a similar use. And this will have an implication for operators and will require investment, as I mentioned before, for optimization of treatment. And this may be detrimental for a lot of small and rural schemes already in place, because it might not be affordable anymore to do reuse for these schemes. However, in terms of monitoring, the frequency is similar, apart from turbidity that will need to become continuous. So what are the implications of the implementation of the EU regulation? So we have asked some of our Water Reuse Europe members and look at case studies that are involved in reuse schemes for agricultural reuse. In general, the regulation is mostly welcomed. And there is, the EU regulation will certainly contribute to mitigating the effect of climate change on water resources by promoting water reuse in a safe and coordinated way throughout the Union, and will address some of the risk with water scarcity across Europe. There is some clauses imposing raising awareness of water reuse to boost public acceptance of water reuse, and this was really welcome. There is stringent pathogen threshold, especially for Class A, which for countries such as Spain and France is much lower than the national legislation in place. So as I said, they probably will need investment to comply with the new regulation. There is a thing that maybe there will be a bit more administrative burdens because you will have to be able to implement reuse for agriculture. You will need to have a permit. Then you will need to have some compliance checks. You need to develop risk as management plans, which will need for many schemes that are already implemented. And there is a question around cross-border cooperation between member states when the scheme may have an impact on two countries, for example. So what next for the regulation? So in June 2022, the EU, in consultation with member states, will establish guidelines to support the application of the regulation. In 2023, the regulation will enter into force, and in June 2028, the EU will carry out an evaluation of the regulation. So as part of the evaluation process, the Commission shall assess the feasibility of extending the scope of the regulation to reclaim water intended for further specific uses, including industrial purposes, and expanding the requirement of the regulation to cover the indirect use of treated wastewater. This means that such applications are unlikely to be regulated at the EU level before 2028. The EU is also planning to revise the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, which may impact water reuse. There is currently consultation going on. So to conclude, a few words about water reuse. Water Reuse Europe, sorry. So what is Water Reuse Europe? We are a not-for-profit association which supports, assists and represents its members while promoting the water reuse sectors as an effective option for sustainable and resilient water management. Our mission is to provide a collective identity for the European water reuse sector and promote an innovative and dynamic industry. Our members are commercial and public organizations from across Europe and who operate in the water reuse sector. Our aim is to stimulate the growth and competitiveness of the European water reuse sector by raising public awareness and understanding of water reuse practices, facilitating the sharing of knowledge, good practices, techniques, research and experiences on water reuse amongst public and private entities involved in water reuse. Promoting European product service and expertise in water reuse to community around the world, supporting European company and particularly small and medium-sized enterprises in their effort to commercialize safe and innovative water reuse solutions, and finally promoting research and innovation on water reuse. So through our online portal and outreach activity, we offer a range of services for our members who are involved in the design, operation and maintenance of water reuse schemes, as well as their regulation and governance. And you can find these benefits on our website. And we are also on LinkedIn and Twitter. These are just the list of our members. So we are welcoming a membership application from companies and organizations active in the European water reuse market. At the moment, we have 21 companies. And that's it for me. So if you want further information about water reuse, you have the contact details on these slides. And no, I'm more than happy to take any question. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Marie. Yeah, thanks for this very clear and interesting presentation. Just to remind all of the audience that you can make your questions through the chat. And well, I do have a question for you, Marie. Well, you were explaining that you did some kind of research of the different schemes and of water reuse in different European countries, and you said most of them were coming from water scarce regions, which is normal because they need this to extend more the water resources. But would you say that water reuse is gaining importance in other countries which are not traditionally water scarce, like countries in Northern Europe? What do you think?
I think there is a big push for circular economy, and water reuse is part of that. So yeah, I think it's going further than just for water scarce country. Some countries are water scarce because of the type of industry or human activities they have. And there is also a push to optimize the use of water through our human activities to reduce the impact we have on the environment. So yeah, I would say, yeah, water reuse is not only for scarce country. The only thing I would say is there is a need for a balance, because sometimes water reuse to mitigate risk can be quite expensive. Which means that can use high-tech technology. I'm more thinking about the potable application, but which means that you end up with a high carbon footprint, which may be not the right way to go. So you need a balance between water footprint and other environmental benefits.
Okay. Another question. It was very clear to me when you showed the table of the quality of reclaimed water, and you compared with the Spanish legislation that I know very well, and we could see, especially with E. coli, how much more stringent it's the coming regulation. Since normally, when in many occasions it will be farmers taking control of these parameters, and sometimes they don't have the expertise or the skills. Do you think this can be a challenge for the implementation of the regulation, that farmers are taking care of tasks, technical tasks that are not really their competence usually?
So yeah, I would say that the regulation would pose some challenge to people to implement, especially when they are not experts. One of these is the risk management framework, because it does come with some complexity. Then, as we say, farmers will need to take samples, send them to the lab. This might be a burden for them. So I think there will be some requirement for training for people, for all stakeholders involved in the reuse scheme to be able to deliver on the regulation.
Okay, good. So thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I think there aren't. Well, so thank you very much, Marie, for being here, and it was a pleasure to have you with us. Very interesting presentation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So now we move on in the agenda. We invite the keynote speaker Gonzalo Delacámara to make a presentation on the socio-economic aspects of water reuse. Gonzalo is the head of the Department of Water Economics at IMDEA Water Institute, and he teaches at postgraduate level in different institutions around the world. Gonzalo is also a policy advisor of the European Commission and the European Parliament, and has worked for other multilateral agencies such as United Nations, the World Bank Group, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Gonzalo is also a senior advisor of the OECD Water Governance Initiative and member of the advisory board of several institutions such as Dutch KWR Institute or the International Desalination Association. Gonzalo, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It's really a pleasure to have you here. How are you? Can you hear me, Gonzalo? Are you there?
Yeah, hello. How are you?
I'm very fine. So, well, the floor is yours, Gonzalo. I hope you feel comfortable today with us. And it's really a pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Right, thanks very much to the organizers of the Suwanu Europe International Conference. For me, it's a pleasure to deliver these keynote this very morning. And I really want to focus very much, as required by the organizers, on some sort of the socio-economic aspects of reclaimed water reuse. But I feel that it's important that we place this discussion so that they do not become strictly instrumental and technologically biased, that we place these discussions within a wider context. So that's essentially what I would like to do. Okay, I can see that my presentation is working. So what I want to refer to is very much this idea that there's a new public good, and it's not new because, you know, it's been recently created, but it's new because we should acknowledge that this is a public good for which no one seems to be paying. And I think that there's a critical discussion around water reuse that very much has to do with how we share the burden, how we share the benefits and the cost of not achieving or achieving long-term water security within a climate change adaptation process. So what I wanted to show is that the actual challenge is not so much drought or drought risk, but it's very much long-term water scarcity, especially in southern European countries, which are very similar to northern African countries and all the countries in the world that I will refer to, like Australia or the western states of the US or the Pacific coast of Peru or northern Chile. So there are many countries in the world suffering the same limitations in terms of water scarcity. But I think that this is also relevant for Central and Northern Europe in many ways. And if I mention this, it's because I do believe that the actual market, which is still untapped, yeah, we can see that there's a huge potential, but as Marie was explaining, this potential is still untapped. I think that it's important that we refer to the market for reclaimed water reuse and advanced treatments and desalination actually in terms of delivering high levels of water security and enhancing resilience within this context of climate change adaptation and mitigation. If we look at one of the main challenges humankind is going to face in the next few years, we will see that we meant to increase by 69% our calories in order to feed around 10 billion people by 2050. Okay, what do we know about the available arable land in the world? What we see is that it's been increasing. It's a sluggish growth, but it's been increasing at a decent rate over the last few years, not so much in countries, in developed countries, but very much in terms of middle income and low income countries, so the emergent economies in the world. What's really striking, if you look on your right-hand side, is that when you express these on a per capita basis, we see that this is massively decreasing, that we do not have an increasing ability to produce food, and therefore we're moving away from the possibility of hitting that target that I mentioned before with FAO data. Okay, how can we actually do that? Well, through increasing yield in basic crops in the world. And this has been actually happening for most of the crops, as you can see in this chart. But the important thing is that we're still lagging behind. We're still far away from the trends that we should be hitting in order to be able to meet that target that I expressed at the onset of the presentation. So, if you look at some areas in the world where there's a massive production of food, you can actually see, for instance, what's happening in the so-called MENA region. Yeah, so Northern Africa, the Middle East, not anywhere in the world in terms of geopolitics, as you know. yeah, especially these days. And when you look at that, you see something that could actually be described as a miracle. Yeah, you've got like very intense irrigation agriculture in places where there's very extreme water stress, according to the aqueduct product by the World Resources Institute, a think tank based in Washington, D.C. Or you could actually describe this not as a miracle, but as a tragedy, and realize that those areas in the world where you find more incentives to produce food are especially areas in which you find abundant land, like you find regrettably low cost labor, and you also find a number of effective sun hours that is much higher than in other areas of the world. What we miss, the limiting factor for this development of agriculture, is precisely water. Not just water, but mainly water. Okay? So the important thing about this is that we see that by 2040, 1/4 of the population will be subject to extreme water stress. And at the same time, we realize that there are very good incentives to make really bad decisions in terms of sustainable water resources management. When you see the response, especially in the Middle East, you see that there's a massive increase in the installed capacity of desalination. Yeah, so they understand the need to diversify water supply sources in order to increase their level of long-term water security. But of course, this is not something you can actually do in all places in the world. And to date, it's somehow expensive as compared to other water supply sources. But you can see the massive increase of installed capacity that is foreseen for some countries in the Middle East. And if you look at whatever's happening in the world, you can see that, of course, the MENA region is leading, but we see that desalination is also gaining momentum. Okay, we will get to the point in which we discuss reclaimed water reuse. Okay. This is the combination of a number of challenges. One has to do, of course, with bioclimatic conditions. Another one has to do with something that, for me, as an economist by background, is easy to understand, hopefully easy to explain as well this very morning, which is this idea that, we have ill-defined incentives, and also something that is key when you work internationally, which is you get to understand that any water crisis is a governance crisis. So all this is leading to unintended outcomes and something that is very important, missed opportunities. Okay, when we look at climate change, we very much emphasize on the global nature of climate change, but we do not emphasize so much on the asymmetric nature of climate change impact. So we know that, for instance, in the Mediterranean basins, the impact will be much higher than globally. When we look at whatever's been happening in other areas of the world, let's look at whatever happens in California, which is one of the top 5 economies in the world, you actually see that scarcity, long-term scarcity, and drought have been here for decades, for centuries indeed. Yeah, so it's not something new. We knew that there are some areas in Europe as well where we will be facing very severe problems regarding long-term water scarcity. When you actually look at some of the unintended outcomes I was referring to, you can see whatever's happening in western states of the US, but we could actually refer to the southeast of Spain, or we could refer to southern Italy, or to Cyprus or Greece, and we would see that the pressure over groundwater resources is enormous. Listen to this number that I'm going to share with you, referring to Spain. In Spain, in southeast Spain, you can actually see that groundwater resources are overexploited annually by, let's say, 600 million cubic meters. And when you look at the idle capacity of desalination plants in the Mediterranean coastal line, you can actually see that in order of magnitude, it's almost exactly the same, 600 million cubic meters. So it would be quite easy to think that if we diversify water supply sources, both through desalination and water reuse, we might be able to replace that pressure over groundwater resources. Why isn't this happening? Because for any farmer in Southern Europe, to withdraw a cubic meter of water might be something like, let's say, 10, 11, let's say at maximum 15 cents of a euro per cubic meter. They pay for the energy cost, they don't actually pay for water, okay? But when you look at the desalination plant delivering water for these farming activities, you can actually see that it's always like around €1 per cubic meter, so 10 times more. If you look at any water reuse facility, you would see that we are around, let's say, 40, 45, 50, depending on the, the technical specifications required. It can actually go above that. And when you connect that and you provide that in plot, it can go above those 50 cents per cubic meter. Therefore, it's a financial issue, it's an economic issue that is preventing us from using and from untapping the potential of water reuse and desalination. Okay, when you look at these areas I was referring to, you can actually see that the potential is there, but as I said before, the potential is in terms of long-term water security. So, who's actually paying for water services? You could say, well, sometimes farmers, sometimes water utilities in order to deliver services for households, sometimes manufacturing companies. Okay, fair enough. But who's actually paying for long-term water security? Probably no one. So we need to redesign incentives in order to acknowledge that this public good has also to be paid for. And this is something much more sophisticated that requires also to acknowledge that these issues cannot be dealt with within the context of a 4-year political mandate. We need to acknowledge that long-term challenges demand long-term responses. If you look at these are the cold producing areas of wine in Europe. You can see the impact that will come from climate change and how these are displacing northwards to places like Ireland or Sweden, believe it or not. And when you see the economic impact of climate change, you can see, this was estimated by the World Bank, that this is not, peanuts. This is really massive in terms of the actual impact. And we've seen something similar with the COVID-19 pandemic these days. And we should have learned something in terms of understanding that no matter how local water services are, the response needs to be global. We need supranational responses to these within the European Union and beyond. And when I said that we've got very good reasons to make really bad decisions, look at these examples. This is a mining site in northern Chile. This is the most important copper mining site in the world. Okay, and I say don't practice this at home. Why? Because they need water. They need a massive volume of water for the mining activities. They don't have water. It's the Atacama Desert, one of the most arid places in the world. So they take water, as you can actually see on your left-hand side, from the Pacific. They desalinate, they pump it up, and they take it at to 3,500 meters of altitude. Does it sound crazy? Well, it is crazy. Yeah, this is an open, this is where they take water, 3,500 meters of altitude. And how come they can do that? Well, they can actually do that because the copper price is paying for it. It's been paying for it for decades now, yeah? So you can actually see that they're willing to pay for a cubic meter even $6 or $7. Can you imagine that? I'm not saying this is what we need to do. What I'm saying is that with private risk, with private investment, this has been done. And this shows how very good incentives we have to make really bad decisions in terms of water resources management. But there are many other examples. I'll show some of the challenges that we can see, including some of them in Europe. This is also happening in Latin America. This happened in the Andeans. These are the tropical glaciers that you can find. Not many of them at the moment. These are melting, and these are creating these fictitious opportunities, fallacious opportunity for farmers in the desert areas of the Pacific coast in Peru, that there's more water in the irrigation canals than ever before. Okay, and when you see these, you talk to blueberry producers and they tell you that they're producing blueberries 4 times, 5 times as large as they used to produce. Well, through the melting of the glaciers. So climate change is good news for them in the short term. It'll be really bad news. It'll probably be game over in the medium and long term. And when you look at whatever's happening in that very same country in terms of asparagus, this is the top one exporting country of asparagus in a country that never used to eat asparagus. What you can see is, the deserts blooming. They produce asparagus in places like this, Trujillo, La Libertad, like 600 kilometers north from Lima, the capital city. And what you can actually see is that they're overexploiting aquifers in order to produce asparagus. So they're damaging their long-term water security in order to ensure that they've got some income and some international currency this year in order to be able to meet some macroeconomic performance targets. You can see this in China, where most of the production of thermal power stations and mining sites is concentrated in areas where there's no water. Or you can actually look back to California when you can see this thrilling, very thriving agricultural sector in a place where there's no water. And the reason for that, or even these golf courses, or this is happening in my home country, in Spain, in Almeria, which is actually a desert, and you can actually see that the increase of greenhouse hectares in the province of Almeria, southeast in the country, has increased by 1,000 since 1963. So we've got very good incentives because water productivity is increasing, cash per drop is increasing. But we should be able to translate these incentives to make bad decisions in good incentives to make good decisions, because we've got a very powerful incentive in terms of long-term water security in order to increase our ability to reclaim and reuse water. If you look at some of the opportunities I want to refer to, what we need to do is something similar to this. Look at San Diego back in 1991 and look at San Diego today. They managed to diversify the water portfolio. Okay? This is very much the challenge I'm referring to. Why is this not happening spontaneously? As I said before, because the unit cost of delivering 1 cubic meter for farmers or any other water user is not the same depending on their technology. So we should be able to price water security and not just water services in order to be able to address the whole water portfolio at a basin level and not individually, locally providing solutions from demo sites or for small water reuse plants all over Europe. The challenge is very much one of changing our value proposition from an economic viewpoint. Any linear production model would be one in which you lose value with the passing of time. With circular economy, what you do is rather the opposite. So you can go up the steps of these stairs, and you don't need to become in the last step. I don't know whether you can actually see it, but it's Singapore. We don't need to become Singapore, but we've got a massive potential to reuse water for other uses other than drinking water supply. There are many ways of doing this. So we can actually use rational criteria to do this. You've got many advanced treatment trains that can be used for this. So there's no one single response to do that. And it all depends as well on your requirements in terms of ultrafiltration or what your national legislation following the requirements from the European Commission is showing you. But it's important that we understand that there are rational criteria that can actually be used to make decisions about the reclamation and reuse of water. And something that is really important, it's also critical to understand that water reuse is only part of the solution. It's not the panacea. So we need to combine these with nature-based solutions, because nature-based solutions will also be able to decrease the cost of reusing water. We need to be able to commit to river restoration and to the replenishment, to the managed aquifer recharge of aquifers, because that will also decrease the opportunity cost of not using reclaimed water for reuse. And we need to understand that most of the time, the water that is finally being used by end users is not reclaimed water for reuse as it left the plant. It's very much a blend of this water with either surface runoff or groundwater resources. So it's important that we test also the specifications of the water being delivered at that point. It's quite interesting. If you talk to farmers in Northern Africa or Southern Europe, and you tell them, are you actually willing to pay for reused water? They may say no. They might be reluctant as yet, yeah? But if we say, okay, are you actually willing to pay to be able to ensure that you've got water for the next 20, 25 years for you, your children and your grandchildren? They might say yes. We frame the problem in a different way, and we present things as if we were referring to insurance, because this is actually what we're talking about. If we're talking about security, we're talking about buying an insurance policy that prevents us from being without water for our productive and human activities in the future. And there are many examples in the world. I will not refer to these, but this is also to show that there are many different ways of doing these things. Okay, some takeaway messages, and it won't take me long. The first one is, if we look, for instance, at the investment in terms of water supply and sanitation, which is closely related because we know that the failure to meet some of the targets of the Airborne Wastewater Treatment Directive is also polluting our waters. And this is compounded by diffuse pollution from agriculture, and therefore creating additional problems for us. So the failure to invest in water supply and sanitation and advanced treatments is also preventing us from being able to progress in terms of water reuse. If we refer to affordability as a legitimate concern, yeah, the fact that many small farmers or many households might not be able to pay for higher tariffs, we need to at least to make a couple of remarks. The first one is, we should not be discussing only about the level of the tariffs. We should be discussing also about the design and the structure of those tariffs. And the second point that I wanted to make is that we should look at the elephant that we've got in the room, that you have in the room now, which is poverty and social exclusion. People at risk of social exclusion is the real problem, not so much the level of water tariffs, because we know that the level of power tariffs or the level of telecommunication tariffs is much, much higher in relative terms. We should also embrace complexity. We have spent many years trying to mitigate uncertainty, and now COVID-19 told us uncertainty is here to stay. So if uncertainty is here to stay, and this will be very much augmented by climate change, we need to acknowledge the complexity of what we're dealing with. Look at these rivers. One of them is the Mississippi, another one is one of the lower stretch of another river in the US. And look at how they evolve throughout time. It's very complex. We cannot only refer to water itself, we need to refer to water as connected to the territory, because this is critical as well in order to progress in terms of water reuse. And look at whatever's happening in other areas of the world. This is New York City, this is Long Island, where Amazon was planning to build a new major headquarters, with 25,000 people being employed. And one of the reasons this hasn't happened has to do precisely because water policy was unable to find a good solution in order to treat wastewater from these new 25,000 people. Look at some of the lock-ins we're facing with some of these new solutions, both in terms of diversification of water supply sources and nature-based solutions. Yeah, there's a technological lock-in, there's technological inertia, there's a financial lock-in. We should be able to untap financial resources available in international markets that can be channeled to these investments and are not being channeled now because we don't have a proper, sound, strategic financial framework for these sort of investments. And we should also be able to understand the assessment lock-in that we have. I'm a scientist, I'm a researcher, and I know what I'm talking about because we tend to assess new solutions as we used to do with conventional grey infrastructure solutions, and it's not the case anymore. We need also complex assessment frameworks for these complex solutions. We need to be able to address, in terms of circular economy, the optimal spatial scale. And it's important to realize that if we don't address this spatial scale, we will be missing opportunities because it's very much about industrial symbiosis. I think tomorrow you've got Panagiotis Balabanis from the European Commission, and he's very keen on this, and I fully agree with him on this, because it's important that we focus on clustering different industrial activities or different productive activities so that we can actually reap off all the benefits stemming from the reclamation of water, which is not the only revenue stream that we find in a circular economy model. Because even more important than reclaiming and reusing water is reclaiming and reusing energy and materials. By the way, this can actually be done not just geographically. Now with new technologies, now with Industrial Revolution 4.0, we know that we can find this level of integration and the capitalization of scale and scope economies also through management systems, because now we have technology to do that. It's important to see whatever's been happening in other areas in terms of advanced treatments. Look at the last generation desalination plants being installed in some countries in the Middle East. They can supply drinking water to poor people as a byproduct of a plant that is mostly aimed at reclaiming lithium. So we can actually think about a desalination plant as a lithium plant delivering a byproduct that we call water. The same could apply to water reuse facilities. Yeah, it could be seen as a biogas production refinery that delivers water as a byproduct. So we need to change our mind and not just think in terms of sectorally biased discussions in terms of energy or water or food security. I skipped that one. It's important to give visibility. The water sector is a sector dealing mostly with issues that are completely invisible to the population. This is a stormwater tank in Tokyo. We should invite people to see our facilities. We should show people what we do, because this is the only way, or one of the few ways, in order to legitimate investments in these kind of facilities that are critical for water management. And we should benefit from this idea of the matryoshka, the Russian doll. If you look at whatever's happening in terms of sustainability, digitalization, and all the recovery and resilience packages stemming from Next Generation EU, you can actually see that each one of them is one of these small Russian dolls. Why? Because sustainability is the new digital, as expressed by the World Economic Forum back in January 2021. Yeah, so we see that sustainability is providing the right narrative, the right storyline for digitalization to find purpose. And also, sustainability and digitalization are two of the elements, like more than 2/3 of all the investment foreseen within the context of Next Generation EU on our national resilience and recovery packages. So we've got the perfect historical moment to do this. We should take advantage of this. And for that, we need to build trust. It's not easy, I can tell you. It's not easy to build trust. We need to build trust with end users. We need to build trust between different economic activities. We need to build trust between the public sector and the private sector, and with the different multi-level governance levels of administration in each one of the member states. And as I say, building trust is not easy, and building trust cannot only be achieved through preaching. Building trust is very much about redesigning incentives. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Gonzalo, for this brilliant presentation, connecting different points. And I think it was very interesting for all of us. I do have a question for you, Gonzalo. We were talking about the importance of water scarcity and different opportunities of water reuse as an untapped resource. I would like to that you can comment also on other kind of resources that brings reclaimed water. For example, phosphorus. We know that phosphorus it's a rare raw material, well, not rare, but limited to different places where it's extracted, like Morocco or China, and it's now a strategic raw material and difficult to find. Do you think? Also, I'm connecting this question with the communication problem that you were mentioning, the importance of communicating positive messages. Do you think we are underestimating the potential of phosphorus in reclaimed water, and it's also something we should take more into account to improve our sustainability in terms of fertilizing?
Yeah, I think we might be underestimating the potential of these kind of resources, especially if you look at the high reliance of European agriculture on the use of fertilizers, and the behavior and the volatility of the international prices of fertilizers of the last few years. You can actually see that if we all gather around this idea of delivering security in the wider sense, which I think it's something that is now part of our DNA because we are living through a global pandemic. Yeah. So the idea of security should be much more than just protecting ourselves from flows of refugees that are also coming to our countries as a result of ourselves being enabled to properly delivering responses for them in their home countries. So when you think about all that and you look at energy security, food security, security against the climate emergency, long-term water security, you can actually see that what we need is an approach that combines all these elements. So I fully endorse what you were saying about phosphorus. And it's quite amazing to see that there are countries in the world that are net importers of phosphate, when in fact they've got all the phosphate they would need as part of their wastewater effluents. So it's just a matter of understanding this, acknowledging this, and creating the right incentives, because this is not going to happen spontaneously. We need to create the right incentives. When I say the right incentives, I'm not just talking about public subsidies. I'm talking about being able to rethink the role of water pricing. Water pricing is not just about financial cost recovery. The Water Framework Directive says we need to recover CapEx and OpEx, but we also should be able to recover externalities, so external environmental cost and the resource cost. What I'm saying is we even need to go beyond that. We need to be able to price long-term water security, to have long-term objectives regarding the provision of water, especially for catchments in which we know that there's something that, in the literature is called as river basin closure. So there are places in Europe where we know that long-term available resources are now well beyond are now clearly lower than current and future demands. So we need to acknowledge that water gap and being able to manage water resources in those basins in a completely different way. But this can actually be done, as you were referring to, through different vectors. And these new revenue streams regarding bioenergy or regarding materials, I think that they should also be, strengthened.
Okay. Good. Thanks a lot, Gonzalo. Thanks a lot for your enlightening us with this very interesting presentation. I think it will be very useful for everybody, but especially for policymakers that are with us today, because I think we really need to improve the instruments of the public sector to improve the situation. So yeah, thanks a lot, and we continue with the conference. Now it's time for what?
I guess, thank you so much once more, Gonzalo. I guess, as you say, good incentives for good decisions and try to change our mindset for water security. So I think it's now time for a short break. So there's time to check your emails, have a coffee or even a short walk, and let's return to the second part of the session with the same enthusiasm. During this break, we invite you once again to visit our virtual gallery. Don't forget, on your screen on your left, you have the button, like the PDF button, where you can check our abstracts and posters. So stay tuned. You don't need to leave the link. However, in case you do, just follow the same link to be back with us. So just, half an hour. See you soon. We are counting on you at 11 a.m. See you in a bit.
Welcome back to the Suwanu Europe International Conference. Now we continue with the planet agenda, and it's the turn of Rafael Casielles. Well, I want to introduce herself. He's a senior project manager at Bioazul, my colleague. He has more experience than 13 years of experience in the coordination of different research and innovation projects. Rafael has already coordinated several European projects focused in technology related to water reuse, as the previous Suwanu, because Suwanu Europe is the big brother of previous Suwanu. Also Rich Water, where he worked with technology focused in Azarquía, a region of Malaga in south of Spain, related to avocado. Treat and use that was focused in the tomato, also using water reclamation technology and MBR, if I'm not wrong. Rafael also is member of the body of knowledge of EIT Food to cope with water scarcity, and co-leads the working group of water and agri-food of the Water Europe platform, together with the leader, Antonia Lorenzo. She will be tomorrow to discuss a little bit about how they do in the Water Europe platform. Now, well, he's the coordinator of Suwanu, and I think that he's going to explain a bit more about the project, about the work during these years, and also about the future of Suwanu Europe. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for this nice and generous presentation. Well, here I will like to present you the project, what we have done in this time. I would like to start with to put things in context. Suwanu Europe, the main objective is to promote knowledge exchange in water reuse, and particularly in the in the use of reclaimed water in agriculture. Water reuse has been a strategic topic in the European Union. It was already mentioned in the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive in 1991, where it was indicated in Article 12 that treated wastewater shall be reused whenever appropriate. It was also indicated in the Europe 2020 Resource Efficient Europe flagship initiative, also in the JRC guidelines of water reuse. You have an image here on the right side of the slide. These guidelines were the basis of the technical background of the current European regulation that was widely commented this morning by Marie. And also water reuse is presented in other strategic documents at international level, like World Health Organization guidelines, or more recently in the action plan of the circular economy, which is one of the building blocks of the European Green Deal. So we are talking about a topic of growing concern. And what are the advantages of water reuse? Some of them have been already mentioned in the morning. First of all, it's a constant source of water, independent of climate events. The reclaimed water, which is the resource, is being produced at any agglomeration of people that produce wastewater. So it's being produced constantly, and this is very much linked to what Gonzalo was saying before about the predictability. One of the problems of climate change is not only that water might be limited in the future or in the present. It's also the lack of capability to make predictions on when and how much water we will have in the future. So water reuse, it's a constant and secure water resource. So very much linked to this security aspect that was commented by Gonzalo. Also, water reuse provides incentives to extend wastewater treatment, because to have reclaimed water with enough quality, we need to treat the water before. That's the previous step, and we have to remember that not in every place wastewater is treated. For example, in Spain, there are 10% of wastewater which is not being treated, so it's discharged to the environment. And with water reuse, we give more value, more life to our wastewater. So this could be part of the economic incentives. We are supplying not only water but also nutrients, with the importance of phosphate, but also potassium and other calcium, magnesium, and other kind of nutrients are present in the reclaimed water. So it implies savings in the fertilizers for farmers, and this is also important. Plants are able to absorb these nutrients, so they do not accumulate in water bodies, as long as they are properly managed. So it's also important to be aware of this presence of nutrients in order to manage properly. Also in coastal areas, it implies a net increase of water resources. In the interior areas, it's true that if we don't reduce and we discharge treated water to the river, it can be used downstream. But in the coastal areas, the treated water which is not reused, it goes directly to the sea, so it's somehow wasted, and therefore its use implies a net increase of resources. Okay, but besides these advantages, there are also shortcomings, barriers to extend implementation of water reuse practices. Reclaimed water needs previous and adequate treatment, and this requires investment in adequate infrastructure. We need proper wastewater treatment plants and reclamation plants to achieve the quality required in the regulatory standards. Like now we have the European regulation, the 2020/741. Also, we need to control, we need to monitor that we are achieving these standards. We need to monitor several tasks of the process. We need to perform chemical analysis, and this also requires not only resources, but also qualified staff. We need also capital resources for this task. And last but not least, it's also very important, the perception. How we see, how we understand the effects of using reclaimed water, not only by farmers or by water operators, but also by the people, by consumers that finally take the decision to buy or not to buy a specific product. So as I said, Suwanu Europe is focused on transfer of knowledge, and we identified some knowledge gaps that have been our cornerstone in our dissemination and capacity building strategy. First of all, we identified that it's needed to spread technical knowledge, in particular, which are the technologies, the treatment systems that are able, on the one hand, to avoid risks to the environment and health, but avoiding over-engineering, so avoiding that we are really putting in place a system which is more than necessary in terms of removing pollutants, so we don't spend more cost than necessary, but also underperforming. We have to avoid that our system is not enough and we don't fulfill the regulation, and what it's worse, we imply a risk to the environment or to the people. It's also important to understand what are the health and environmental impacts as a result of using reclaimed water, so that we can set realistic requirements. And in this sense, it's very, very remarkable to understand what are the effects of emerging contaminants, of emerging concern. There is extensive literature, but not reaching the people who is taking the decisions. It's also important, especially for farmers, to have available agronomic studies. We need to understand what are the effects in crops, not only in crop quality, but also in productivity, in the yield. And it's very important to learn how to manage nutrients. As I said before, we can take advantage of nutrients contained in reclaimed water, but we have to be concerned. We have to avoid posing excess of nutrients to the environment. So we need appropriate tools for that. Economic knowledge is essential. We need cost and feasibility studies. we need to learn very well, as Gonzalo was mentioning, the economic incentives to have adequate water pricing that really incentivize water reuse. And finally, it's very important to understand the possibility of having commercial barriers. What are regulations for exports? What happens of a producer of tomatoes in Spain if he wants to export to other countries of the European Union or even out of the Union? What are the regulations? What might happen? Are there any kind of barrier for this? So another example of it's what happens with organic farming, which is increasing interest. Can we irrigate with reclaimed water or not? Those are questions we need to solve, and our materials should be able to respond these questions, and it was intended to do so. Well, to give you some background of the call of the specific topic within Horizon 2020, where Suwanu Europe is framed. It's a thematic network compiling knowledge ready for practice. This is an initiative in line with the EIP Agri strategy, and the objective is to connect different countries, regions in Europe with a specific focus on farmers, so that this knowledge is spread, is exchanged, there is interaction and interlinkage and of lessons learned and good practices. If we see the definition, the formal definition, thematic networks are coordination and support actions, meaning we are not creating new knowledge, we transfer it. We aim to collect and distribute the practices and research findings on the thematic areas chosen, in our case water reuse, and therefore increase the flow of practical information between farmers, foresters, in our case other stakeholders in Europe, in a geographically balanced way, creating spillovers and taking account of the difference between territories. In a nutshell, what we really want is that research results are not ending up in a drawer, are not published in a journal that nobody reads. We want these results to be accessible, to be available for the people. Having this in mind, we have defined our objectives, which are shown in this slide. First of all, we want to close the research and innovation divide in the field of water reuse in agriculture. So we want that these research results are really changing society. We want that these results are finally becoming innovations, are finally part of the portfolio of solutions of the companies, are also part of the strategies of the public sector. We want to change attitudes in consumers. We want really to be a game changer in the field. For that, what we aim is, what we have aimed is to summarize, share, and present existing best practices, research findings that are close to being put into practice, but not sufficiently known or used by practitioners. With this purpose, we have developed an extensive range of appealing end-user material. I will detail all the materials that we have developed now. Something very, very relevant. We need to make results easy to access and understand, and feed into the existing dissemination channels most consulted by end users. So here it's about finding the appropriate channels, but also finding the appropriate format, the appropriate language. So we really reach end users in an effective way. EIP Agri, it's very much focused on the dissemination of practice abstracts, but we have extended this concept and we have included other kind of materials that I will detail in a while. And what it's very important to focus on real problems, to focus on what people need, and for that to understand very well what's the context and the problems that they are facing. So all these principles are enlightening our strategy, which can be summarized as you can see in this slide: extract, adapt, and transfer. We have extracted and we have done a very strong effort to to collect all these scientific results, all these practices which are being put in place in the last years in Europe and in other countries. We have adapted them to the format and language of the different stakeholders, and we have transferred. We have not done this alone. The idea is to make all this process in a very participatory way, to count with the feedback, with the participation of different stakeholders. So we have created regional working groups in 8 target regions in Europe. I will show them which ones in a while. For these regions, we have created regional action plans with strategies to promote water reuse, and we have organized different events like participatory workshops to get in person the feedback, the insights of the different stakeholders in order to include those stories that are important for them and also to adapt our strategy to their needs. So this was our approach, to make it participatory, and also very important to have a multi-actor approach, to include a wide range of different stakeholders. We learned in this first day of the conference that water reuse is a complex problem. It's not only a problem of technology. And so we need to engage and take into account different sensibilities, different perceptions. And here I want to emphasize the role of consumers, because if they don't buy a product, a fruit or vegetable irrigated with reclaimed water, there's nothing to do in the other parts of the chain. It doesn't matter how well we treat the water. It doesn't matter how profitable it's our irrigation reclamation plant. If they decide not to consume, then it's over. Our product will not be sold. So we need to take into account all different sensibilities. Here it's not a non-exhaustive list of stakeholders that have been in our focus. Farmers, very important, advisory groups, water treatment operators, water engineering companies, consumers and general public, and authorities and policymakers. For each of them, we have developed adapted materials to try to change attitudes, policies, technologies, and so on. Well, this slide summarizes our main outputs. I will say we started with 2 kind of diagnosis of the situation: a regional diagnosis and a research and development diagnosis, finalizing with a knowledge transfer action. Going to the regional diagnosis, what we did, it's a characterization of 8 target regions in Europe to understand what are the problems, to understand what's the potential of reuse, how much they are treating the wastewater, how much they are reusing, why they are not reusing more. And following this, we developed a SWOT analysis to understand the barriers and the enablers in each of the regions. We also developed an ACIS analysis, which is a methodology to understand how is the communication and transfer of knowledge flow between the different actors, which are the key institutions that are delivering the messages and are therefore more listened and cared. And according to this, we also organized participatory workshops to listen to the people, and this was the basis of our action plans, of our strategies in these 8 regions. In parallel, we developed a regional and development diagnosis. Here we collected a wide range of water reuse projects and initiatives that have been included in a database, which is available in our website, and in all over the world. So with more than 70 projects. So here you can learn from other success stories, from other projects related to water reuse. So we centralize in this way the different projects and results. From these projects, we selected the most promising ones and developed fact sheets of what we call lighthouse projects. Yes, in this sense, there are 16 fact sheets available in the website that you can check with the main features of these remarkable projects. And we had a specific focus on Cyprus and Israel. Why? Because they have been pioneer countries in water reuse, and we wanted to understand what are their keys for success. Indeed, they will be presenting the work during today after the regional dynamic session. But it was for us very important to understand how they have overcome their barriers in their specific countries, to understand if there are common issues between them to face this challenge of promoting water reuse and extending its practice, and to understand this from a multidisciplinary perspective. What are the different aspects at different levels? Finally, our strategy for knowledge transfer. It's not only we developed these materials, we extract the material, we also are trying to be main actors in the knowledge transfer, as we are doing today in the international conference. So we developed info packages. These info packages are fact sheets with a specific practical knowledge for the different actors. We will see in a while. Very important, the online course that Rui was commenting this morning. We have an online platform for learning with a course which is already available in English to train different stakeholders, to train students in the different water reuse aspects. And the training workshops. We also organized training workshops in the target countries, yes, to bring these lessons and to raise awareness and to increase capacities of the different actors in order to extend water reuse practices. Well, to finalize, I would like to show you how all these results look like with some screenshots of the website. This is a screenshot of the database of water reuse initiatives. You can find them in a map and locate them by geography location. You can search by different topics of the projects. And as I said, there are more than 70 initiatives. Well, the success stories are also available in the website through fact sheets and can be easily downloaded. Regional characterization, we have reports for the 8 target regions with several data, which is also relevant for research and trying to understand what's the potential of water reuse in each region and what kind of strategies can result from this analysis. Yeah, here we have the example of Andalusia. Even though we are in Spain, which we are supposed to be one of the pioneers in Europe in water reuse, we find out that in the target region, Andalusia, which is a water-scarce region, which has a strong agricultural sector, only near 6% of treated water is really reused. Okay, we have other regions with higher rates of reuse, especially in the east part of Spain, as Valencia or the case of Murcia, which is one of our success story. Murcia has a remarkable scheme of managing water reuse, I would say, because what they have done, in Murcia there is strong implication of the authorities to promote water reuse, and they have a curious but very effective scheme. What they do is that it is the public water authority, the responsible for reclamation and monitoring water quality. So they let's say they remove this responsibility from farmers, which are not really skilled for wastewater treatment. They provide confidence, security, and finally they facilitate life. And what we have learned in our analysis of the different regions is that water reuse is complex, and we need to tackle the different steps of the chain. So here, I think the case of Murcia is it's really a paradigm of a good practice, because of the implication of the public sector. Okay, here we have the regions in which we have worked more intensively, from which we have developed these regional strategies. It's Belgium, and in Belgium we have Antwerp and Limburg. We have Occitanie in France, Alentejo in Portugal, Andalusia in Spain, Po River Basin in Italy, Thessaloniki in Greece, Plovdiv in Bulgaria, and Braunschweig in Germany. Here you have a screenshot of our info packages with some examples. Info package number 6 targets authorities and policymakers. There is one fact sheet, for example, on water governance to promote water reuse. Info package number 4 is targeting water engineering companies. For example, here we have a fact sheet on light-driven technologies for tertiary treatment. Info package 5 targets consumers and general public. And we have different fact sheets, including one to promote communication, good communication to define the appropriate messages. We also have an info package for farmers and irrigators, another one for advisory groups, and so on. So also very important, policy briefs. There are 4 policy briefs published in our website. Here we have examples of 2 of them, like how to solve water conflicts and how to deal with conflicting rights in the water sector, and how water reuse can contribute to this. Or very important policy brief about public perception, tackling the jack factor, how we can change this, let's say, instinct attitude of being like, jack, oh, I don't like this coming from excreta. So how we change that, how we can focus the message on water security, on climate change, on how to combat climate change, on sustainability, how to do this. Last but not least, we have the e-learning platform already available with 4 different modules for the different stakeholders. You can access it through this link or the QR code. In this slide, you are encouraged to do the courses. The courses are made with videos of our consortium talking about different aspects of water reuse, very linked to the topics that I just mentioned in the policy briefs and the info packages. Well, this is a picture of our 20 partners consortium. We started in January 2019. Here you can see we are all together without masks. Things have changed a lot since then. Well, it's a shame we are not again together. We will be together, but well, this is what we have. Well, here, just to finalize my presentation, I would like to make a specific mention to the 20 partners of Suwanu Europe. You have them here in the slide. Without them, this conference on all these results will not be possible. So I want really to send an applause, I guess, from your houses or offices. We will not hear, but we will feel it. So my applause to the Suwanu Europe Consortium from this extraordinary work delivering these important materials and results. So that's it from my side. So thank you very much. And if there is any question, I'll be very happy to answer.
Well, we can take also the opportunity just to mention, because well, Rui known very well, myself, we work a lot in try to share with you all this result through our website, where you can find, we have a specific page for each region, each of the 8 target regions, where you can find the region characterization, the SWOT, and the regional action plan that was made with the work of each target and regional working group, We have also all the material and all the summaries related to the training and practitioner workshop. We have the presentation of the expert for each target region. We have summaries, we have news, we have picture, because all of them, or most of them, will be done previous to the COVID. So we have the opportunity to work face-to-face in a lot of target regions, not in all the cases, but I think in 2019, most of them was realized, the first part of the work in Suwanu. The same, if you visit our downline section, you have the policy brief, the fact sheet, and of course, all the different deliverables related to Suwanu Europe that have been developed during our work. So please visit, subscribe to our mailing list, because we want to continue this work to share it with you, the results, the material, and trying to continue and give a future for our work in this knowledge of transfer.
Rafa, we have here a question. First of all, they are saying congrats for your presentation. And people are asking lessons learned. If you, because you showed us a photo on January 2019, yeah? It was a long journey of 2 years and a half. And yeah, people are asking lessons learned.
Okay.
And then we have another question, that is, what about the next steps? What about the future? Perhaps you can link it. So lessons learned and what's next?
Okay, let's start first with what's next. As I said, water reuse is a very strategic topic for the European Commission. So there will be further opportunities to cooperate in terms of water reuse initiatives, not only at technology level, but at governance and other kind of actions. Tomorrow we will have an interesting presentation from Panagiotis Balavalis. He's a member of the Water for All initiative, and he will present some opportunities in the Horizon Europe and also in the Water for All partnership. And I think there are quite a few, there will be quite a lot of opportunities. Cluster 6 is about food, biotechnology, and its water sector is very much included there. Not only also in Cluster 5 of Horizon Europe, it's about energy, but also climate change. So water is also present there. Water at the end, it's really a cross-cutting aspect, and water reuse, it's really part of the circular economy strategy of the European Commission. So we will find opportunities to cooperate, and as it is also for Bioazul and a strategic field, we will be promoting different initiatives and probably will be present in other projects about water reuse.
Yeah, because I have the feeling that, at least here in Portugal, I have the feeling that at the beginning of the project, this thematic was only well known by some of the organizations, some public authorities, of course, the policymakers, and also the water treatment plants, and one or two more stakeholders. And the fact is that with the work that you have just explained about the workshops, the regional working groups, the work that we have done in our target region, and as far as I know, it happens more or less the same with our partners. We have the opportunity to engage with different stakeholders, and the fact is that we had so many good feedbacks and even ideas. Barriers were mentioned and identified, as you say, and they are stated in some of the info packages that we have, but also new ideas for new strategies to involve all of these stakeholders, not only farmers, but for instance, we have the example, as you just said, on the consumers is very important. The perception that the consumers would have for a product that was irrigated with reclaimed water, but also, for instance, the retailers, that is very important. And in fact, this thematic is very well included in their own strategy on environment, on biodiversity, on the better use of resources. So it's very well on good timing, let's say. and also for the certification schemes at farm level, because we had opportunity in one regional working group. We talked with certification bodies, and this barrier that could happen on, as you just said, on organics, but also on certification schemes like Global Gap, or even on the food industry. You have schemes like the ISO 22000 on food safety. You have the BRC, the IFES. So these kind of schemes, they are so strict on quality and food safety. And so this is something that has to be discussed. So I would say that lessons learned, at least in my country, but I'm sure that in other countries is the same, is that our stakeholders are very much engaged. They are anxious to know what is happening, and anxious also to know the next steps, and they want to be involved.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's one of the things that we reached in our project, and it's
I agree with you, and we have felt something similar. People are engaged, but also depending on the region, it's very linked to, finally, perception. It's very linked to the situation. It's not the same. I would say that whenever you are facing water scarcity, your ears are more open to listen to other options. So it's probably it's also a question of incentives. If people are not paying for the water or very little amount, then it's more difficult, especially if they have the perception that water is plenty available, which might be the case for right now, but not for the future. So perception is very much linked to the current situation and how they envision the future. Yeah. And here we have found some differences. And another lesson learned, it's not easy to count with participation. People are very busy. They have their own priorities. In Spain, for example, as I said, we still are on track to comply with Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. It means that there are several municipalities that are not complying with the discharge requirements for treated water. It means that for them a priority is only to treat the water, so they don't even think about reclamation. And here we probably have to work with incentives to how water reclamation can help those municipalities that are not even are not reusing to have a proper sustainable solution that includes treatment and reuse. And here we have worked for example, in another project is Rich Water. It's a project about technology development. We have developed a membrane bioreactor in South Spain to treat and reclaim both in one wastewater using a decentralized system to irrigate mangoes and avocados. Because this is one of the, especially in the eastern side of Malaga province, one of the main economic drivers for the rural areas. And so we also try to find a technological solution working in this side. Okay.
So it's just like Gonzalo just said, as good incentives for better decisions.
Yeah.
I guess it's
so.
Okay. Rafa, so thank you so much for your presentation. I guess it was inspiring. And now that's so. Until now, we are approaching to the conclusion of the project. So it will end in June. So main outputs are there, as Angela just said. And to complete your presentation, we will now move into our dynamic session. So what we try to do is, as Angela and Rafa said, we have these 8 target regions that developed hard work. It was a work for the past 2 years and a half, almost 2 years and a half. And so it includes the SWOT analysis, the regional action plan. It involved a lot of stakeholders in each region. And we thought that it could be quite interesting and a good idea to present the work that has been done, the complex work that has been done. And so we'll split in 4 stages, let's say. And it will be available for these parallel sessions with the presentation of the work developed by the project. At regional level, of course, highlighting the barriers and the enablers that were identified in the SWOT analysis of each region. And of course, the measures that were defined in each regional action plans for these 8 target regions of the project. So depending on your preferences, you'll be able to enter different stage, the 4 different stages with the regions that interest you most. Of course, that each target region will make a 10 minutes presentation, and then will be followed by 5 minutes of Q&A session. So be involved, be participative, because I guess we'll have interesting stories to hear, but it will also be quite interesting to make your own questions and suggestions, okay? You can, of course, you can exit and enter in the 4 different stages as often as you like. And for the access of these different stages, on the platform, you must choose on the menu at your left, the second button that looks like a calendar icon, but in fact it says program. So as soon as you click there, you will have the 4 stages available for you to, let's say, to navigate between them. So on stage 1, we will have the presentation of the target regions of Portugal, in the south of Portugal, Alentejo, and also Andalusia in Spain, as just Rafa explained a while ago. So from Portugal, we will have Diana Cordeiro from FENARREG, and we'll have Júlio Berbel from UCO, okay? On stage 2, we will have the target region of Antwerp and Limburg, Belgium, with Noemi Zet, and we'll have Suzanne Reynard from Prof Station. And on the region of Occitane, France, we'll have Rémi de Klerk from Ecofilai, that will present their own target region. On stage 3, we'll feature Braunschweig from Germany, with Janina Heiss from AVBS, and we'll have also the Po River Basin from Italy. And Adriano Battilani will be with you. He comes from SER. On stage 4, you'll feature the regions of Plovdiv, Bulgaria, and we will have Stefan Chilev from Plovdiv Agricultural University. And from Greece, the region of Thessaloniki, we'll have Elena Tsanou and George Giankas. They will come from ANEF. So after this parallel session, we will return to this main stage at, let's say, 12:10. And then we'll hear about these inspiring success cases of Cyprus and Israel, yeah?
Yes.
So, yeah, please join us in these 4 different rooms, and see you in a while. Please be participative. See you in a while.
Hello again. What very interesting work done by the regions. Thank you very much to all of you to participate, to be there, to our partner, to present the results. Welcome back to the main stage of our international conference. Remind you that all the parallel sessions have been recorded, so we will share it with you through our social media, through our website, and well, now I would like to point out another pillar of Suwanu Europe, the knowledge and experience of Israel and Cyprus. Pioneer countries of water reuse, as we comment from the beginning of the day. We finalized the first day of our conference with the lesson learned from this country through the experience of Poppy Karaolia from Cyprus and Diego Berger from Israel. Well, Poppy is a postdoctoral researcher at NIREA's International Water Research Center of the University of Cyprus. Her research expertise lies in the development and application of methods and protocols for the detection and enumeration of cultivable bacteria and of various types of genes. More recently, she is leading the setup of monitoring system of SARS-CoV-2 in wastewater in Cyprus, and she's involved in several collaborative water-related international research projects. On the other hand, we have Diego Berger. He is International Special Coordinator at Mekorot, the Israel National Water Company. He has a degree in civil engineering and Master of Science degree and PhD in environmental engineering and water resource management. During his long experience in Mekorot, he has been focused on diverse topics: water resource management, modeling and optimization of water supply system. And in the recent years, Diego was actively involved in consulting work on behalf of Mekorot abroad on hydrology and water resource management issues. So thank you to both of you. I'm very happy to see you here. Please, the stage is yours. I think that Poppy will be to start. Hello, Poppy.
Thank you, but Diego will begin with the case of Israel.
Okay.
Okay, so Diego, the stage is yours. It's nice to see you.
Most of the time, ladies first, but the lady let me start. It's okay. Okay, so we'll start with I'm presenting this on behalf of Mekorot, that is the National Water Company of Israel, but this is a joint presentation between Israel and Cyprus. So if you can put the presentation. Okay. So we have from Cyprus is Poppy Karaolia. It's like it was introduced before, and Professor Despofata Casinos, and from Mekorot, me and Adas Ranan Kiperbas. So I will present, and what's the part of the main question here? What is the lesson that it could be learned from Israel and Cyprus that are the successful stories of reuse of effluent? So I will present first of all the story of Israel, or how Israel is connected to reuse. After that, Poppy will present the Cyprus history, and at the end we will summarize all the lesson learned with what we call the key for success. So how this knowledge is possible to be transferred to other people. So let's start. So only in a few words, what we to present something about Israel. Israel is a small country, only 25,000 square kilometers, and we are in a place in the east part of the Mediterranean Sea. And the average rainfall in all Israel is around 450 millimeters per year. All the rainfall is concentrated in only during the 4 or 5 months of the winter, and we have a large change of rainfall between one year and the other. One thing that should be present here, that we are using around 2,000 million cubic meters per year for all the needs, and agriculture is around 55% of the consumption. Okay, so let's go. Okay, and this is something that is very interesting, because in Israel since 55, so 1955, one of the first law that was written in Israel was to measure the water that we consume and that we supply. And this is the story of the water consumption in Israel since 1958. So what you have here in the black is the population of Israel, but in the lines that you can see below and above this red line, you have the consumption for industry, domestic, agriculture, and total. What you can see here in this figure, that the population and the domestic consumption are going in parallel. So the domestic is increasing according to the increase in the population, that is almost 1.8% per year. And another thing that you can see, that the agricultural consumption is almost the same, or the same order of magnitude during the whole story. So at the beginning, if we talk about the 60s, 80% of the consumption was for agriculture. Now we are around 53%. So this is because we are more, let's say, we are using the same amount of water, but we are more efficient. We can produce more crop for the same amount of water. And one thing that we put below in this figure is are the policies that were implemented during the whole period of time. Since the 60s, and you can see there in the yellow, implemented policies, we shift from surface water to irrigation, pressurized irrigation. Let's say to increase the efficiency of irrigation. The second stage was to start to introduce brackish water, and at that time that we are talking about the 70s, all the irrigation was pressurized. So at the middle of the 80s and the beginning of 90s, we start to promote the reuse of effluent, and this is what has been done until now. So we can see that this was done after two previous stage. It's not that it started directly with reuse of effluent. Okay, let's continue. And other characteristic of the system in Israel, you can see on the left the national water system, that we combine all kind of water in one system. In blue is the potable water that we also supply for agriculture. In red is the reuse effluent. And also you can see in the map that we have on the left, on the right, sorry, is that we are connecting into the same system also desalinated water. That could be from brackish water or from the sea water desalinated. And another thing that is very, very crucial for this story, that in Israel since 2005 we have only one person that is, or one organization that is responsible for managing the water sector, that is the Water Authority. So we have, let's say, previous to 2005, we have a lot of ministries that were involved in this management, like the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Interior, and also for infrastructure. Since 2005, we have only one authority, and each one of the ministry that the privilege was involved with the management has one vote inside the board of Water Authority. What you can see here in this board. Okay, so the price in Israel is another thing that should be explained. The price in Israel is the same for domestic. Doesn't matter where you live. You live in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, or in Haifa. So we take all the costs and we divide by the amount of water that we are selling. And this is because 2005, the water sector in Israel is a closed sector. It's a self-financeable sector. So all the costs that we have is like water from the desalination plants, water from reuse, everything is put in the same basket that is divided by the amount of water that we are selling. So we have also a uniform price for the potable water that we supply for the agricultural sector, and we have also a different price for the reuse water. That the reuse water is according to the quality that we supply. Is the high quality that includes soil aquifer treatment has the highest price. That is half of the price of the potable water for agriculture. And that's what a way to convince the agricultures during the 80s and 90s to use this kind of water, because first of all was cheaper, around half of the price of the potable water. The second one is that this water has also nutrients, so they have to use or to expend less money for fertilizer. And the third one is that we can assure this amount of water. So these 3 points convince the agriculture to move from potable water to reuse effluent. Okay, and since we started to deal with this more than 40 years ago, was not this, let's see, public let's say, awareness for this kind of water. So what was a decision of the government and the water authority on that period, and was not a conversation with the people. So they decide what is the best for the reuse, and was implemented this policy. So in Israel, since we have also the water authority and the Ministry of Health should let's say, set what is the standard for each kind of water, and which kind of crop is possible to be irrigated with each kind of water. So there's not a public issue about which kind of, I don't think, for instance, tomato or lettuce we are eating. So we are. It's not, let's say, public. Thought about this, or discussion about this. Everyone is convinced that the water authority is doing its best to give the best quality for everyone. So, and this is my last slide. So since we start with reusing the effluent, you can see in black is the total water for agriculture. In blue is the potable water. In green is the reuse effluent, and in black, in red is the brackish water or marginal water. You can see that since 2017, we are supplying more water, or we are using more water from reuse effluent than water from potable water for agriculture. Okay, so from here, I think that Poppy can continue. Poppy?
So moving on to the case of Cyprus. Cyprus is basically an island in the Eastern Mediterranean basin. It is the third largest island in the area, with a very small population of less than 1 million and a total land area of 9,254 square kilometers. We have high annual temperature ranges from 14 to 17 degrees in the winter and 30 to 37 in the summer. We have wet seasons from November to March, and average annual precipitations of 480 millimeters approximately. As you can see the pie chart on the right, the main economic sector that uses water is agriculture, followed by domestic use, tourism, livestock and farming industry, and others. So historically, water crisis has been going on in Cyprus for many years now. We have different types of precipitation each year. As you can see, we have years ranging from severe drought to very high or high and normal precipitations, while the average precipitation in the last decade has been among the lowest for the various decades of the century. In the meanwhile, an increasing number of tourists coming to Cyprus every year, which was estimated in 2019 to be 3.9 million, increases, while increasing also the water demand and the need for the appropriate water supply. So in Cyprus, the agricultural sector is the largest reclaimed water consumer, as more than 23 million cubic meters of tertiary treated water are produced each year, with an estimation to increase this 3 times within the next decade. Today, we have approximately 15% of the total irrigation needs covered by reclaimed water, and this is expected to increase to 25% in the next 4 to 5 years. Also, another interesting fact is that the water used in agriculture is around 70% of the total reclaimed water produced, with 15 million cubic meters, and this covers around 20% of the total irrigation needs. So how do we deal with the water scarcity in Cyprus? Since decades ago, the government has decided to centralize the management of water with various infrastructure projects. They started with building of many dams around the island, over 100 dams to be specific, with a storage capacity of over 300 million cubic meters of water. Also, various wastewater treatment plants have been constructed all over the island, with 6 urban treatment plants in each major city of Cyprus, with a total capacity of over 133 million cubic meters per day. And also we have 8 rural wastewater treatment plants serving more than 2,000 population equivalents and less than 2,000 population equivalents being served by 5 wastewater treatment plants. And also, there are large-scale water distribution networks, large reservoirs and boreholes for domestic and irrigation purposes. And also, we have 4 major seawater desalination projects to produce fresh water from seawater. The centralized management from the government of Cyprus has included the adoption of both agronomic and policy measures towards the alleviation of the irrigation demand in agriculture. So this includes the reuse of reclaimed water, the extended use of advanced irrigation systems to produce more efficient water use, and also the adoption of the recycling nutrient options inside greenhouses. More specifically, the water use in Cyprus includes the irrigation of crops, grass, and green areas according to the good agricultural practice. The water use includes the enrichment of aquifers and the infiltration in dry river beds, and also there is seasonal discharge into the sea depending on the excess production of water from wastewater. Regarding the policy measures implemented, we have the Directive 91/271 of the European Commission, where it is stated that treated wastewater shall be reused whenever appropriate. And also we have our national regulations, such as the Water Pollution Control Law, which is the 106 of 2002, and the Ministerial Decree of small-scale urban wastewater treatment plants. These regulations dictate how the treatment of wastewater must be conducted in different scale wastewater treatment plants. And as you can see in the tables below, there are maximum permitted values and frequency of analysis implemented to the treatment of wastewater in small and large wastewater treatment plants. The good agricultural practice implemented in Cyprus since 2007 dictates which types of crops can be irrigated with which types of practices. As you can see here, there are different types of irrigation techniques used in different crops and in different agricultural yields. We have the grass, green areas, and agricultural crops and livestock farming, which may be irrigated with subsurface drip and controlled surface irrigation, faulting sprinklers, and also low high pressure sprinklers. In order to improve the efficiency of irrigation in agriculture and other types of irrigation, the good agricultural practice dictates different cropping patterns which have been selected and proposed to farmers to ensure the efficient utilization of water at farm level. There has been water allocated to agriculture using a quota system with penalty charges for overconsumption of this type of water. The irrigation water in government schemes is distributed through modern and highly efficient systems such as closed pipes, drippers and sprinklers, while the improved irrigation systems currently cover around 95% of the total irrigated area, which shows the efficiency of the total irrigation system implemented. Next, the financial and economic measures and incentives that have been provided by the government include the water pricing. Around 80% of the capital cost of the construction of the infrastructure projects has been covered by the European Community, while the remaining 20% of the capital cost and 100% of the cost of operation and maintenance of the treatment plants for the efficient treatment of wastewater is covered by citizen taxation, and this includes the sewerage fee, which is paid once a year based on the value of each house. and the use of appropriate pipes, and also the sewerage system use, which is paid every 2 months based on the drinking water consumption. As you can see in the table below, the reclaimed water is cheaper than the fresh water provided for the same uses and in the same areas. More specifically, you can see that in agriculture, the price of fresh water is 17 cents per cubic meter, while the reclaimed water costs 7 cents per cubic meter. And this pricing is very strong incentive for the users to accept reclaimed water as a new reliable water source. Next, the decentralized water management structure, which has been proven to be efficient, is covered by the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development and the Environment, and the various departments which are responsible for the smooth operation of water allocation, water treatment, and provision to the farmers of the appropriate reclaimed water are the Water Development Department, Department of Environment, Department of Agriculture, the sewerage boards, which are responsible for the collection and treatment of wastewater, also the operation and the maintenance of the whole sewerage system. We have the local authorities responsible for the distribution of domestic water. And also we have the Agricultural Research Institute, which is responsible for strengthening the rural development and ensuring the sustainable use of this natural resource. So, in order to make people accept wastewater reuse in a more efficient way, there has been a rigorous public information on this type of irrigation water. More specifically, at the beginning, there was a lot of reaction and skepticism by farmers and other end users at the early days of implementation of the water reuse in Cyprus, mainly due to the ignorance, misconceptions, and of course, psychological fear. However, the government knew that they needed to raise awareness on the benefits of water reuse and build trust, credibility, and confidence in such a practice. So the local authorities responsible for this task gathered the information they needed before they started to communicate to the people. Different types of info. More specifically, they recorded the justification of the need for water reuse in Cyprus, which is mainly based on water scarcity, the costs of installing treatment and distribution systems, environmental benefits, the social and economic benefits, and also the transparency on exposure risks to the public, how this can be addressed, and the treatment levels which are needed to reach appropriate levels of quality. All of the above information were analyzed by the responsible departments in order to provide a clear justification for the introduction of the Cyprus wastewater reuse scheme. And so the acceptance issues have been addressed through information and consultation campaigns, the education of the farmers in small groups, the regulation of the effluent reuse through the Cyprus Code of Good Agricultural Practice, making recycled water cheaper than fresh water, and demonstrating benefits in practice. And below you can see various ways in which the information was communicated to the more general public, which includes TV and radio shows, distribution of informational leaflets, creation of websites, social media, press articles, workshops, seminars, and training events, and conferences. So, after examining the cases of both Israel and Cyprus, in order to create and locate the keys for success for the two countries, we identified the common drivers for the success. We decided to describe a local approach for each case, and also at the end identify the common keys for success. So we have divided the fact sheets that we have created in the framework of the Suwanu project into 8 different topics for keys of success. We have created in total 16 fact sheets, and another fact sheet for the keys of success, which is a summary of the overall findings from the rest of the fact sheets. And here you can see the different titles for the fact sheets for both Cyprus and Israel. These were the selected topics, and you can find the appropriate fact sheets in the website of the Suwanu Europe project. So the fact sheet should be seen as a knowledge package altogether that includes commonalities for both countries. For example, regarding the long-standing water shortage as a driver for increasing reuse, the differences between the two countries, for example, there are differences in pricing and different sector management. The driving forces for water reuse maybe have to be acknowledged, and also examples of different adaptation strategies have been given within the fact sheets, and also have been used to examine the keys for success for both countries. So here you can see a diagram where you can see the main keys for success: centralized management, regulations, trust of the public, education of the public, and the water use culture are very important, along with infrastructure and pricing by the responsible authorities, and also driven by the regional water scarcity, are the factors that provided the keys for success for increased water use. So at the end, I would like to thank Diego for the collaboration for preparing this presentation, and also the Rafael for the very good organization and coordination of the Suwanu Europe project, and the whole consortium for such good collaboration. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Poppy. Thank you very much, Diego. We have a question. We are a little bit late, but Diego, if you can answer to us just fast. We have less than a minute. We have this question: do you have a separate network for each type of water in Israel, and it is extended over the whole country?
The only thing that is supplied in a different network is the reuse effluent. All the potable water, all the desalinated water goes in the same network. And the reuse effluent, for each quality, we have a different kind of network. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Diego. Thank you very much. Poppy and Diego, will be very nice to work with you and learn about the pioneer of water reuse as an example for us.
Thank you.
Good. So it's your time, Ruth.
Yeah, okay. So, thank you once more, Diego and Poppy. Before ending this first day, we would like to remind you that you can visit our virtual gallery. Don't forget it, please. It is available on the platform with all the abstracts and posters that were submitted within this conference. If you don't have the opportunity yet to visit the virtual gallery, it will be available during the 2 days, and one more days we will keep it there for you to please read it carefully, and please also contact the authors and rate the abstracts and posters, because the authors are asking to please rate them and try to interact. You have there their contacts, and that's a way that you can get this network. It's impossible because we are not face-to-face. So it's a way to do it. Please do so. Rafa?
Good. Thank you, Rui, and thank you for our presenters. It was very interesting. Here we are now going to conclude the first day of our international conference. And once again, we would like to thank all the keynote speakers, the partners, for the excellent presentations of today. We will also like to thank all the participants who stayed online with us throughout the morning and who participated in the very interesting and challenging question and answer sessions. We hope to count on you for tomorrow's sessions, which will have a different but equally dynamic and interesting organization. We remind you that the access link at the platform is the same. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Brussels time. So goodbye and thank you very much for staying with us. Bye-bye.